Good morning and welcome to our next installment of our tour through the Glendive Dinosaur and Fossil Museum. You having a good time so far, Alden?
Yeah.
It's a lot of cool stuff to find. We've been finding snakes and we've been counting little clownfish, and we've been talking about some of our exhibits as well. And our hope is that you will be able to someday come and visit us here at the museum. So one of the things we're going to be doing on the junior paleontology sheet, for those of you that are filling that out, is we are going to count snakes. But we're not going to find every snake in the place because we want to save things for you to find as well. So as we find snakes, we'll point some of them out for you, and then at the end, we'll count up what we found, and we'll let you know that you need to find some more when you come and visit us. So we're glad that you're with us today and joining us on this next installment. Just a reminder, the Glendive Dinosaur and Fossil Museum presents its exhibits in the context of biblical history. Simply means that we believe the Bible is an accurate history of the world and that the flood of Noah's day is what laid down the fossil record. And you'll be learning about that as we go through. A couple quick announcements. What days are we doing this, Alden?
Tuesdays and Thursdays.
At what time?
11 o'clock.
At 11 a.m. Mountain Time, that's right. And we want you to join us here. Now, it's a little bit cold outside in Glendive today, and you can tell. How can you tell that it's cold outside? Because Alden's wearing his Tennessee Titans cap, and not a cap. What is it? It's a hat. That's good. And Tennessee Titans are Alden's favorite football team. And we know that we've got some other people that are part of our museum that are Tennessee fans too. Who's that?
Tommy and Martha.
Yeah, Tommy and Martha. They're in Nashville, and Tommy took us to a Tennessee Titans game a couple years ago, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty awesome. We got to go to one of those. Pretty fun. So shout out to Tommy and Martha if you're watching today. We're so glad to have them a part of the ministry here at the museum as well. So one more announcement. What are we going to do on Friday night?
We're going to do like a camp out in the museum, kind of.
Yes, we're going to do a night at the museum. We're going to camp out. Alden's going to set up his tent in the dig room, and we're going to have the lights off in the museum. And we will go around and show you things in the dark, what the museum looks like at night. Kind of scary. Does that sound spooky?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it should be fun though. And you'll be able to join us on Facebook at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. And you'll be able to join us live as we go through the museum. Won't that be fun?
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be a lot of fun. So I think that takes care of most of our announcements. We'll remind you at the end of this as well as we get to the end of this episode and let you know what we're doing. So let's start with the best dinosaur of all. And Tommy won't agree with this, but the best dinosaur is what dinosaur, Alden?
The T-Rex.
The T-Rex. We love the T-Rex. And look at this guy. This is Stan, just like you saw Stan out in the entryway. This is Stan, the full-size one, put together. It's a cast, again, from the original. You can tell. How can you tell, Alden, that it's a cast?
Because it has metal.
Where at? Where's the metal? Is it on the outside or the inside?
Outside. No, inside.
Yeah, inside. That's right. Yeah, there is some outside as you look up in the skull, but the bones that are put together out here, you can see the metal right there, but then it goes inside the bone to hold it up. And through all of these vertebrae, there's metal as well. And this is really cool. I remember helping put this thing together, and it was on a Christmas Eve that we put this thing together, and it was a lot of work to do that. So, do you have anything on your sheet about the T-Rex, or do we not?
We have that. Yep.
Oh, the matching, yep. So if you look at it, there's the T-Rex. So take a look at that skull and see if you can match up the T-Rex to your sheet that you have printed out. I want to just talk about one thing, Alden, with you that
is really cool about the T-Rex. Back in, I think it was 2005, they were working on a T-Rex femur. What's the femur? Do you remember what the femur is or no?
No.
No? Okay, the femur is that bone right there. Can you get that on the camera? The femur is that big bone in the leg. And they were working on a femur in Montana to get that out and get it back to the lab, and it was just too big. It was too big to get out, and so they had to bring in some people, and they actually cut it in half. They cut the femur in half. Now, you never want to do that, because anytime you cut anything, you lose part of it, right? So they decided to look at the inside of the bone, and guess what they found inside the bone when they began to look at it under microscopes and they dissolved away some of the mineral? Do you know what they found?
No.
You don't? They found soft, stretchy tissue still intact. Did you know they have found blood vessels, blood cells, and many other things inside dinosaur bones? That is really, really cool. Because the question we ask is, how could soft tissue survive for millions of years? And I know there's some in the scientific world that are trying to show how it could last for millions of years, but we don't have to try and come up with an explanation because we don't think it's that old, right?
Yeah.
We think dinosaurs were created on day 6, right? And that God created the dinosaurs and other land animals as well on that day. Well, we'll probably talk about T-Rex some more because I can't stop talking about T-Rex. But let's move on to Edmontosaurus. And we're going to come over to this case right here. Another dinosaur that we find quite a bit of is Edmontosaurus. Now, remember we talked about, why don't you step right up here, Alden, and take a look at these. Remember we talked about dinosaurs, how they get their names? Sometimes it's from the places they were found. Edmontosaurus got its name from where? Do you know?
No.
What do you think? Edmontosaurus. Do you know?
No, I don't.
It's a place in Canada. Edmonton, Canada, Alberta, Canada is where the Edmontosaurus got its name. And we have even found, when it comes to Edmontosaurus, we found skin impressions. You can kind of see that there. And on this vertebrae back there, there's skin impressions on that as well. The Edmontosaurus is what kind of dinosaur? What kind of dinosaur, Alden?
A duckbill.
A duck-billed dinosaur, that's exactly right. And there's all sorts of kinds of duck-billed dinosaurs, and I'll introduce you to some others here in a minute as well. You can see some foot bones and some ribs and different things as well from the really cool Edmontosaurus. I'll let you take a look at some of those, and let's make our way over here. All right, one thing, and we're going to start down here at this dinosaur track, and we have no idea what kind of dinosaur that comes from, other than that it's a 3-toed dinosaur, and you can see the track right there. See the toe marks right there, and it's kind of in the position. It's the marks are kind of like if the dinosaur would have been swimming in water, trying to swim, and it scraped the bottom. That's what kind of is going on right there in that trackway. Now, tracks, again, really hard to preserve, right? Especially when there's a bunch of water and stuff going on. And so when you begin to look and find trackways, you discover that something had to happen to fill those tracks in and hold those in place so that the sediment could keep piling in on top of it and ultimately preserve it, just like that. So this one was found in Augusta, Montana. Now, another thing that's very interesting, I want to talk about this guy right here. This is a model of a Maiasaura. Now, what in the world is a Maiasaura? A Maiasaura, what kind of dinosaur is it?
A duckbill.
It's a duck-billed dinosaur as well. So Edmontosaurus is a type of duck-billed. The family name for all of the duck-billed dinosaurs, do you know what it is, Alden?
Hadrosaur.
Hadrosaurs, that's exactly right. So the hadrosaurs are all the different kinds of duckbills, and this particular one is one of those. And Maiasaura, a lot of research was done on it at Egg Mountain around Shoto, Montana. And they found at Shoto, Montana, they found eggs. So if you want to take a look at the eggs here, these are not necessarily Maiasaura eggs, but we do think they come from a duck-billed dinosaur, these eggs. And these are real eggs. And they found eggs, again, perfectly in their nests. Something came along and buried those very quickly. Otherwise, our eggs, what happens to eggs if you like drop an egg or you hit it really hard? Yeah, it would what?
Crack.
It would crack or break and there'd be nothing left, right? So they found eggs, they found babies, and juveniles, like teenagers and that kind of thing. And that's what this is. This is a young Maiasaura. We call him, do you know what we call him?
Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah, that's exactly right. From which movie?
Star Wars.
Yeah, from the Star Wars movies. We call him Jar Jar Binks because the way he's standing and he just kind of looks like Jar Jar Binks. And this particular one is a young Maiasaura. So they found at Shoto eggs, babies, young Maiasaura, all the way to adults. And you want to show that big one again? Look at it. See if you can back up and get it as good as you can. And then just see the comparison in size. Maiasaura could get huge. And then, if you look at these, so adults, young Maiasaura, babies, eggs, all of those buried together. So what do you think happened, Alden? What, if you found all of those together, could you tell about, could you explain how those would have gotten there like that?
Flood.
We think the flood, that's exactly right. We think that the flood would explain why they would bury all of these things together. Now, some have come up with some other stories. Did you know the name Maiasaura means good mother lizard?
No.
It means good mother lizard because they think by finding them all together that the adults took care of the babies. Now, do we know that for sure?
No.
No, we don't. Unless you were there and you could watch how they interacted with their babies, we're not going to know for sure, are we? No, not at all. So it's possible that that's true, but we can't know that for sure. But one thing that we think fits is the Bible talks about a global flood, right? That destroyed everything and would have buried many things under sediment and would have fossilized them just like we have today, all mixed together, babies, adults, all of it together if they were right around each other, and water can even move things from a big distance too, right? So when you begin to look at all of these, I think it shows evidence for the flood. A couple more things I want to point out in this particular exhibit. Here, come over here and see if you can read this one right up here. See if you can read that one right up there. See if you can read it.
Paracephalus.
Close. Parasaurolophus. See if you can get the upper part of that as well. See if you can get the whole thing to see that big tube on the top. Now, if I were to just ask you, Alden, why do you think God made that thing with a big tube on its head? What would you say?
So it could attack itself with it, maybe? Like attack other predators?
Oh, okay. So to protect itself from other predators, maybe it was something it could hit them with. That's a good one. I haven't heard that one before. That's a good possible explanation. Some have said it's for sound, that there's chambers in there that when the air goes through those chambers, it would make some kind of sound and could alert other Parasaurolophus to creatures coming after it. That's possible as well. Some have proposed that maybe it's a fire-breathing dragon, that maybe that particular tube had chambers in it that had chemicals that when spewed out the nostrils could catch fire and cause, that could defend itself using that fire. Is that possible?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's possible as well. And we will, well, let me just talk about it now. I was going to say we could talk about it upstairs, but right now that exhibit's being repaired. So one of the things, and let's kind of move over here, Alden, and let's talk about this just a little bit. Some people will say something about that fire-breathing dragon idea, and they'll say, well, that's just ridiculous. There's no such thing as fire-breathing dragons. That's what some people would say, right? But did you know there's a bug today that kind of does what a fire-breathing dragon might do? Do you know what that bug is? Do you remember?
No.
It's the bombardier beetle. Remember that? You probably remember it now that I say it. But the bombardier beetle is a beetle that has different chambers in its body, that has different chemicals that mix into another chamber, and then spewed out its back end is a boiling hot acid-like substance that it spews at anything trying to get it. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
So if God could make a bug that could do that, don't you think he could make a big creature like this to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and wouldn't it be cool to have dragons? Yeah, I think it would be. Yeah, that would be cool. So those are all possibilities. We don't know that for sure. And we don't try to pretend like, oh yes, this was definitely a fire-breathing dragon. We just say, look, it's possible. It could be. One thing on your sheet, let's look at your sheet again, because we need to answer a couple questions. Okay, read that one right there.
What dinosaur is Montana's state fossil?
What dinosaur is Montana's state fossil? Let's think about that for a second. Well, we are just here at this one. What is it, do you think?
The Maiasaura.
The Maiasaura is exactly right. The Maiasaura is Montana's state fossil. And make sure you get the matching, because I think that's on there as well. There's a picture of him on the matching on the Maiasaura. So make sure you match that up also. One more thing I want to point out in here is a couple other things, and then we're going to kind of conclude right here for this particular episode, because I can go on and on and on and try and get to all the rest of these, but we're going to save the rest of this downstairs for our Thursday broadcast. But Tommy and Martha did a pretty incredible job putting together what we would call a composite Edmontosaurus foot. Now, what does a composite mean? Well, it means all these bones do not come from the same dinosaur. They're different bones that we've found that we had similar size, and Tommy and Martha put them together to show you what an Edmontosaurus foot would look like. These are all real bones. They come from our collection, and Tommy and Martha put them together. A lot of dinosaurs throughout history that have been on display have been composite dinosaurs, bones from different dinosaurs. I saw one up in the Royal Tyrrell Museum in Alberta, and that one was a composite T-Rex. It was called, I think it was a Montana T-Rex, and what they did is they took a bunch of different Montana T-Rexes and put them together, and that's kind of making a composite. That'd be taking bones from a bunch of different things and putting them together. Here's another couple other things just to point out before we kind of wrap things up. This is an ischium from an Edmontosaurus. Now this kind of shows that we have to sometimes change our minds, Alden. Did you know that? We don't always have it right the first time. We originally had this labeled as a rib because it sure looks rib-like, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But then we started noticing, what do these ribs do? They kind of curve, don't they? See how they curve?
Yeah.
Does this one really curve? Not really.
Not really.
It's kind of a straight bone, and it's got a little bit of a twist to it. So let's go over here. If we can bring the camera over this way really quick. Sorry to get you all jerked around over here. I want to show you on this juvenile Maiasaura. Even though this is a Maiasaura, it has a lot of similar bones to an Edmontosaurus. Look at this bone right here. Look at that bone. That is pretty much just a small version of this bone right here. And it wasn't until we started looking at the Maiasaura that we started looking at this bone and going, hey, you know, this might be an ischium instead of a rib. So we don't want anybody to think that we always have it figured out. Sometimes a lot of people can get to this point where they think, oh, we know exactly what every bone is. We're always learning, as are anybody in paleontology. Always learning, trying to find new things, and trying to identify different things. So we have gone through today the T-Rex and the Edmontosaurus and the Maiasaura. And next time, guess what we're going to do? We've got Tommy's favorite dinosaur. What is Tommy's favorite dinosaur?
Triceratops.
Triceratops is, yep, he loves the Triceratops. And we are going to take a look at that in our museum as well. So we are so thankful that you joined us today. And we want to remind you to join us on Tuesdays and Thursdays through April, right? And we have a special event planned for this Friday at 7 o'clock. What are we calling it? Our night?
In the museum.
Night at the museum, that's right. And we're going to walk around and we're going to show you all sorts of things, these cool dinosaurs in the dark. So thank you once again for joining us. Continue to fill out your junior paleontology sheet. I will give you more information about how to get your button. Can you show them the button? Yeah, there you go. There's the junior paleontology button, and you can earn that button if you fill out that sheet. So join us again next time and throughout the month of April. Thanks, and see you later.